This is very interesting, and I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to, with a big round of applause, to introduce to you. She's the COO, the Chief Operating Officer of Think Film Impact Production, and she's here with her entire team. Please put your hands together for Amy Shepherd. Thank you, Amy. Thank you. You're most welcome. It's good to meet you. You know, I recognized you just when you walked in the room, and I was very excited to see you here with us. Can you tell us a bit more about, you know, what you guys are doing as far as the creative space is concerned and the impact? I love that word. The impact that you guys are using your platform to do, because we just spoke about African stories, right? Before I even come to that, before you answer that question, let me just delve into this a little bit. There's a director from my country called Pascal Aka did a movie called Gold Coast Lounge, which I got the opportunity to work with him on there as an actor. But Gold Coast Lounge is the crime story, but the setting is it's a noir, so it's the 1940s, Hollywood style, you know, fused with different Ghanaian languages, African influence, jazz music, you know, high life. This is us telling our stories. Fast forward, who has seen Blood Sisters on Netflix? I love Blood Sisters, you know, and it's us telling our stories. Do we have an European audience for our stories?
Well, thank you so much. It's a fantastic question. This is a fantastic event. I'm really, really delighted to be here. We launched last year with Marché du Film Impact as a whole new program within the Marché. And impact is something that's really been rising in the film industry over the past few years as a kind of, you know, a value add, to see how stories can make social change but can also add value to your production at the same time. And so this is something we talk about a lot, of how impact can help you get to new places and engage more audiences, really change the world in a different way.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, absolutely, I think there's an appetite for African stories. I think there should be more told. I think there should be more here at Cannes. And I really hope that this event is something that, you know, the Marché du Film itself takes in and the festival take in. And so in future years, you know, there's a far greater kind of visible African presence, you know, right through the heart of the festival itself.
Absolutely.
So thank you. So Impact, I've prepared to share with you a little bit about the work that we do, and I've got a few clips from some of our projects as well, some of the African stories that we have on our slate, because I thought that would be interesting for you to see and for me to share a little bit about how we work in Europe to bring African stories to Europe and to kind of engage, because ultimately we're all human. These stories are resonant. I mean, you shared, you know, that sort of, you said it, a Hollywood noir. You know, whether you're African or European or North American or South American, you know, we all have the same kind of emotions and family struggles and internal and external conflicts. So I think there's real opportunity there. So yes, if I may, sorry, the slides, are we all good? You've got to love some tech challenges.
Slides are out.
Great. Are you clicking?
Yeah.
Yes. So this is just a bit of background to who we are. We have been around for about 8 years now, and one of the co-founders, Dwayne, is in the room. My colleague Danielle, who also co-founded, wasn't able to be here today. But yes, so the way that we work is that we come alongside films and we bridge, really, we're kind of like political strategists, and we bridge the gap between film and the world of policy, and so showing films how their niche can be used to generate an audience and to really kind of make concrete change in society. We work at the top levels of governance because for us it's all about structural change. Right. We can do grassroots change and that's fantastic, but if we don't change the policies and the laws and how the governments work, then that doesn't have the trickle-down effect. So that's where we really start, is we start from the top and we think big. Okay. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of kind of picking out a couple of things that have been really big recently to explain how does impact drive audiences, why does this matter? So Squid Game was this kind of phenomenon. Like everybody had heard of Squid Game. Everybody was watching Squid Game. Everyone was talking about Squid Game. It was everywhere for this kind of flash moment. But actually, really what gripped people about Squid Game was, yeah, sure, the kind of the competition level of it, right. But it was about this debt and desperation. Everybody could resonate with this concept that you might be so desperate that you would risk everything. You would risk your life because there was nothing else. And that's what really got people, was actually that concept of society is so broken that this fictional, you know, fight to the death competition might exist, that could be something we could realistically buy into. And the reason that they then juxtaposed Squid Game and Encanto is because Squid Game, yeah, was everywhere, but where is it now? Nobody's talking about it now. Everyone's moved on. We're all watching the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And that's really because they didn't kind of understand the power of what they had as a story to change anything. They could have changed so many things, but it was this giant flash in the pan because it had that impact component, but because they didn't harness the impact component, it sort of went nowhere. But Encanto, very different story. Of course, it has a different audience in many ways. It's a very family-friendly film, and being a film versus a series, all of these things play into it. But what's interesting about Encanto is not only was it the most watched film on Disney+, but people kept coming back. And it was, on average, audiences have watched Encanto 5 times. So that is a story about a refugee family and a story about a family that are each struggling with their own individual identity and how they fit into the family and what is their role if their identity is no longer the identity they thought they had. And so again, it's a story that understands people. And that's why people keep coming back. Yeah, it's got great catchy songs, but ultimately it's the heart that people keep coming back for. So that's just kind of the way impact doesn't have to be, you know, a campaign all the time. It can be, but it can also be the way that you think about your project. You think about the story that you're telling. You understand the context in which your story is being told. And all of those things, as you write your script, as you cast your actors, all of that plays into how your story can have power and how it can connect with audiences. So, next slide. Keeping him on his toes. So this one's got 5 click-throughs, so you might as well just click through all of them and then I can talk. So it's kind of, I wanted to talk about briefly, yeah, the value of impact. What does impact do for you? So we've really talked about this in the first one. Your narrative. You harness what your USP is through your narrative by understanding your impact issues. Then you can have legitimacy. If you've got experts that come around you who know the story that you're telling, if they'd had experts with Squid Game that they understood the societal problems and that could have informed maybe some storytelling plot points even, that helps de-risk your investors, which is super important when we're talking about money and the challenges of money for African stories. Right. Then the third one is about press. And impact can get your story to places that you never thought it could get to, because you're no longer looking for just the Variety or Hollywood Reporter article. You're looking for the article in The Guardian, in Reuters. You're looking for the article in, you know, Nairobi Daily or whatever the local newspaper is that talks about the issue that your story connects with. And then the social wave, so the influencers, and that can be your cast, it can be your director, it can be a local politician or a local business person who comes alongside your story and who says, I'm going to champion this because I've been fighting this all along, and this story is going to connect and cut through to people in a way that my little piece of the world and the puzzle hasn't done so far. And so you can bring people alongside your story when they understand why your story exists, why it's being told, why it matters, and how it fits into the world. And then finally, lifespan. Impact can mean that your story lives on much longer. It can be the flash in the pan, like Squid Game, or it can be the audience has returned 5 times, like Encanto. It can be that your story maybe doesn't get the theatrical release that you thought it might, but it lives on in VOD, and audiences come back because actually it's placed into curriculum in educational courses. And then audiences around the world are engaging with your African story because it connects to a geography or a history or a geopolitical curriculum. And because people are talking about your story, it continues to have relevance, it continues to grow. Your audiences keep sharing it with new people because they understand, again, the heartbeat of what is going on. Next, please. So then we have to talk about the market. So yeah, you've got 2 click-throughs on this one as well, because it's important to understand that impact isn't just a vision. It's not a, all of those points are real about what impact can do, but it's important to understand the market that you are selling your content to. Because if you don't understand who you're selling to, then you don't understand how to sell in order to sell to that market. Now, group of millennials up the top. Millennials, Gen Z are kind of the biggest market component. They have $150 billion combined spending power. So really understanding how they tick matters. Because yeah, you're selling to a studio perhaps, or you're selling to a streamer, but ultimately they're selling that content onto the audience that will ultimately watch it. So understanding the buying power and the motivation behind that consumer purchasing matters. And next point on this slide, I can't quite remember it. There we go, 72%. You can click through to the next slide and then do 5 clicks for that one as well, because this explains it a little bit more. So yes, 72% of millennials expect brands to act on the things they care about. And this is what's important, because here, millennials and Gen Z make up the largest audience for VOD content. They desire authenticity. They have more trust in film than news outlets. That's super important. They're not turning to mainstream news for the information and the facts anymore. They're turning to films. They're turning to your stories. And the demand and market for documentaries particularly is really expanding. Documentary miniseries are one of the fastest growing types of content today. Millennials also influencers to older generations. So not only do millennials, my generation, buy things, consume content, travel to places based on adverts that they've seen because they care, because there's an authenticity and an honesty there, but they also influence what their parents buy and what their grandparents watch on TV. And then finally, yeah, Gen Z want truth, value individual expression, and mobilize for a variety of causes. So really sort of millennials want to be seen, Gen Z want to be involved. So how is your content involving your audience? How is it showing them that they can be active about the social issue? How is it showing them that they can be part of the change, that they can address it in their own family, their own community, their own society, and globally across the world? So this is understanding your audience and understanding how impact can meet your audience expectations. And then I think I get onto the slide where I get to talk about projects. Yes, here we go. So this is the really interesting bit, because then you get to see some stories. So we've got 3 projects on our slate at the minute that I wanted to share with you particularly, because these are all African stories, but the third one, this Monkey Nation, is also in itself a British story, because it's by a British Namibian director who grew up in Namibia but now lives in the UK, and he's melding together these kind of 2 cultures. Whereas this one, the top one, Bio Baby, and this bottom one, Jump Out, are purely African stories. These 2 are both documentaries, and then this one is a fiction. It's a multi-format series. So I've got clips from each of them so you can see the story. So we're going to play each of them. So the first one is Jump Out, and it's a beautifully commercial project. It's a documentary. It is about a group of young kids who go to this acrobatic school in kind of the slums around Nairobi, and basically the problem is that there's no real, the education structure is really broken in Nairobi and across Kenya, and probably across Africa as well, although I don't know that so well myself to be able to say it. But these kids, they're just so joyful. They're just so full of life. And their mentor, Steve, kind of teaches them acrobatics, and through that they engage with lots of the kind of struggles that they're going through in their own families and their life. And it's just a really powerful African story that kind of shows that African stories don't have to be, the European audiences don't expect the doom and gloom all the time. Actually, Africa is joyful, people are joyful, kids are kids. Right. And this is a story that we can do some hard-hitting impact around education and changing education structure, but we don't have to hit people over the head with that message. We can show them that these kids are just beautiful human beings and having a great time, and that's something about Africa that's important to know as well, that Africa's not just this country of struggle or continent of struggle. I mean, I'd say country of struggle, and that's entirely incorrect. That's European, that's my European kind of inherited how you describe Africa. Africa is not a country, Africa is a continent. Absolutely. It has individual stories, it has individual cultures. So let's play Jump Out and see that one.
Hello.
Look, mama.
Thank you, guys. It's okay. The show is finished. Oh, no. Okay, we start the show. Thank you. Up. Get. Hey, thank you.
Mnafurahia kwa watoi? Hapana. Mnafurahia kama kitu wa watoto? Hapana.
Mimi nafurahianga.
Nafurahianga saa zingine na kasiri.
Mimi nafurahianga tukiitwa watoto. Unajua mbona? Kwa sababu si wote ni watoto.
Kabisa.
Hadi mtoto
ni mtoto wa mtu.
Hadi babangu.
Kabisa.
Ni watoto. Ukisikia ati mtamu nimegrow up, niko class 8. Wewe ufika class 8 uone. Bado kugrow up ni vizuri.
Nafikiria
bado ni mtoto.
Nafikiria watoi wanapata heshima.
Na wewe ukiwa mkubwa unaweza tamani kuwa nini?
Sisi ni engineer. Engineer
mimi naingia tu ya jeshi. Ule mwanajeshi wa kompyuta.
Najua sasa sisi ndio tunalipa pesa nyingi kushinda juu. Hizo vitu tunatumia control, sisi ndio tunatengeneza. Wallahi ni kweli.
Hiyo pesa yenyewe
kuna engineer iko na catering nyingi, kuna engineer ya gari, engineer ya barabara, ya nyumba, engineer wa ndege. Naweza taka zote. Nataka ni ya barabara.
Sana kama kusomea kompyuta sana.
Mimi nakuwa dancer. Wewe unasema utakuwa nani kwa mkubwa? Mimi sijasoma yangu. Sema. Mimi? Mimi niko tu surgeon. Kwa nini? Kama niko filmmaker. Kwa nini? Kwa nini? Sijuzuni bamba kwa sababu surgeon wewe. Nashika unaenda daradara mwili, sawa? Operation, wafanya na operation. Unafanywa hivyo na kitu hivi, na unatoa. Na kitu hivi. Nitakushika. Nafikiria mnaweza chanjo.
Ai.
Mimi naweza.
Sijui anakifika huko sasa.
Nani? Imefika hadi hapa tu kutoka hapa reli.
Mimi sitaki kupewa. Sitaki.
Mbona?
Si kwa sababu mimi sitaki. Sasa juu mimi sitaki.
Hadi mimi sitaki. Baby tu nishike tu sana nimelala. Haina shida.
Sasa watu mjengo na ndiaje kujenga hapa. Cheki chuma. Hizi machuma huko si
hizo ndo zinazoshikilia malio. Simiti.
Simiti ndio ishikilia nyumba.
Okay, so that's just a few kind of scenes there at their rough cut stage. They're still developing, but it sort of shows the conversations that the kids are having in this, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? It shows the possibility, and it shows hope and opportunity is there. And that's what we're doing with this film, is we want to give those kids kind of that hope and opportunity for that to be, you know, a realistic prospect, that by supporting their education systems and by putting structures in place, that it means that those futures can happen for them, and that's what really matters, is making it all possible.
But is it not to cut you? But is it really happening though?
What do you mean? What really happening?
What you just said. Is it really happening?
The education impact work.
Putting the structures in place and giving them.
Yes, this is how we work. Is that this is what we do at Think Film? Is that we bring politicians together. We look at things like European development funding that can go into Kenya or into kind of Pan-African structures. We, pairing education ministers to come together and to learn about best practice scenarios, bringing the film into high-level spaces like at the European Union or the African Union, inviting the Minister of Education for Kenya to go and visit the kids. These are all things that we do practical things that we do within an impact campaign that kind of show opportunity, change situations. In some impact campaigns, we really look at hard-hitting changing laws. Other impact campaigns, it's more about kind of prompting people to reevaluate their own policies and opportunities, or finding funding and paying for their education, because just at the moment there's no money to pay for the education, and so using audiences as a means to kind of crowdfund or that kind of activity as well. So it's really bespoke for every impact campaign that we do. But yeah, when we say we do things, we really do things. Like that. We've got rid of toxic chemicals in Europe. We have changed the conversation on AI across Europe to focus on human-centered regulation. These are all things that this is our expertise is in changing policy, and so it's that's our heartbeat. Okay. So the next one is Buy a Baby, and the reason I wanted to show this one is this is the trailer for this one, and it's just, again, it's a documentary, but it's so beautifully shot that I think it could be a fiction film, and so kind of to show the creative possibilities as well of how to tell stories in a really beautiful way, whether your stories are African or European or from somewhere else in the world, just to think about how creative you can be. It's a bit jerky with the sound, I think. I think you probably just need to buffer, maybe, in order to...
Let's talk about it briefly, and then...
Yeah, so this is a story in Sierra Leone, and the woman Aminata, she's a young woman who's escaped prostitution and some horrifically violent relationship circumstances, and she got taught to surf as a way of kind of dealing with her trauma and healing her trauma. And she has now started a surf school for other women in Sierra Leone to come to the surf school, and for them to also have an opportunity to escape. And it also connects with a story of a young man who is in prison for something he either didn't do or was very unjustly accused of doing. Okay. And the kind of the challenges of the prison system as well, kind of interspersed with how do you escape your circumstances and find freedom, and the kind of the power of the arts as well, the power of sport and surfing in the ocean, and just that that therapeutic approach to help people overcome trauma. Okay. Is it possible? What? Is it possible?
Hold on, I got a question for you, Eddie.
Go for it.
So this is very interesting, and you guys have been putting a lot of work and doing a lot, for that creative space, which is commendable. However, will I find this on a local channel in Europe? Will I find this in a theater in somewhere in Europe? How is that realistically, is the right way resonating to the people?
Yeah, that's a great question, because the distribution possibilities definitely impact, and the way that you market a film and the way that you sell it through an impact lens can really help your distribution possibilities. So, our films sell to broadcasters like BBC and Arte and national broadcasters. They sell to streaming platforms. They have theatrical releases. They have non-theatrical releases. Kind of, every film journey is unique, of course. But particularly it's how, if I take an example of Coda, like you've heard of Coda, the Oscar-winning story about a young hearing girl who grows up in this deaf family, children of deaf adults. Well, if you describe Coda, for example, as a story about a young girl who is, struggling with her identity and finding her space in the world and choosing between her family and her friends and figuring out what her life looks like if she has to choose between these two things. Nothing that I've said would be wrong, nothing that I've said would be incorrect about Coda, but it would fundamentally miss the point to not describe Coda to describe Coda without mentioning the fact that it's deafness and everything revolves around her ability to hear and her family's inability to hear, and what it means to be a child of deaf adults, and to not describe a film without that issue fundamentally misses the heartbeat of the story and doesn't connect with audiences in quite the same way. And so that's what impact in terms of messaging for distribution can really do. You know, the way I described Bio Bio Baby in talking about the surf school, you could describe it in very different ways. You can describe every film in a multitude of ways, and it's finding the language that brings out, you know, the core of what the story is really about. You know, I could have just described the Jump Out as a load of kids that are, you know, exploring what it means to grow up and in Nairobi. Right. Like that, again, that's not wrong, but it's not exciting in the same way, and it doesn't challenge audiences in the same way, and it doesn't say, well, how do I, as a European audience, I might have a 10-year-old kid the same age as these kids. Well, why am I watching a bunch of kids in Nairobi? Well, I'm watching them because they're exploring what their hopes and dreams are, and I'm sitting at home with my 10-year-old who's exploring what his hopes and dreams are, and that for me, you know, as the hypothetical imaginary mother in this scenario who might come as an audience to the film, that's what's human. That's what connects across the, if I might say, divide, and helps us understand that it's not just European stories for European audiences and African stories for African audiences, but it's stories about humanity and how it connects us and how it engages us. I mean, feel free to ask more questions. I love to be challenged.
Well,
I hate to interrupt, but the opening frames look so beautiful. Is there a way of looking at it even with the sound?
Well, that's why this is what the technical, you could try doing the third one. You could try doing Monkey Nation, see if that's any better as well.
Oh, cool, that works.
Does that work?
No, the space thing works.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, I want you guys to see it. It is so beautiful. That's why I want to show it, because it's just so. It's so beautifully put together, and yet it's a documentary. And again, documentaries don't just have to be this one way of shooting.
This is the other one.
This is the other one. This is Monkey Nation. You can play Monkey Nation, then I can talk about it afterwards. That's also possible. Okay, so that was Monkey Nation. So let me explain Monkey Nation then. This is a super cool project that we're really excited to be partnered with by a British Namibian rapper, artist, illustrator. That is his music video. It's his lyrics, it's his mix of this kind of trap opera style new fusion music that he developed with the Royal Opera House in the UK. And the whole point of this is that it's actually super powerful for this conversation, because we need a new way of telling climate stories to engage audiences. David Attenborough, the white, pale, male stale, it's not cutting it anymore. And this guy, he really is, his passion is to make us all want to become kind of eco-warriors, and particularly to engage young people and young Black British teenagers, particularly from his community, but also more broadly, who feel that climate can't be their fight. Because either the climate is the fight of the sort of, in the UK, like the Extinction Rebellion is quite white and middle class. You've got Greta, who is, you know, not representing how they see themselves and who they are. And yet it is their kind of, they are the diaspora of communities who are the first and hardest hit on the effects of climate change. And so it should be their fight. But also, you know, if you're still struggling against so many other structural barriers in society, climate's yet another thing you have to kind of struggle against. And so the vision of Monkey Nation is to make the climate fight exciting again, and to make it dynamic, and to make it something that's cool. And so these four archetypal characters, the whole the Monkey Nation is a fictional story about a young boy that gets sent into the future, into the sixth global extinction has wiped out all life on the planet, and this only group that are left, the tribe, the matriarchal head of the tribe sends him back with this message. This is how you're going to save the planet. And the four kind of the archetypes of the four represent parts of the tribe, and he comes back, and you as the audience are then called to join the Monkey Nation tribe to find, are you a pathfinder, are you a shaman, are you a warrior? What is your identity? Climate Fight doesn't have to look like one thing. You don't have to do one or be one thing. We can all be part of this, and you can find your place in the Monkey Nation tribe. And this music video was created again because we just felt we needed a different way of getting the message across and getting people excited. And yeah, I love that you talked about music in Africa. I love African music. I actually some years ago now, I was part of an Afro-Brazilian samba reggae drumming band, if you can believe that.
Wow.
Which I bet you can't believe it. But there are videos. There is actual evidence. I went to Brazil. I drummed the whole way through Carnival in Salvador. It was an epic experience.
Wow.
I love African music. And yeah, this guy, we heard his music and we were hooked from his music. We didn't need to see the pictures. And that's also part of film, is music. And to understand that you don't necessarily sometimes even need a visual to get your message across. Just the music alone can be enough.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's Monkey Nation. We're still looking for loads of partners. So if you're interested in coming on the journey with us, then definitely catch me afterwards.
Okay.
We'll see if we can make Bio Baby work. And then that will be, I think, the end of my time.
Okay, so before we leave, where can we find, are they out there that we can access?
Yes, so these are all projects in development at the moment. So you have had an exclusive sneak preview of all these things, and we're still on journeys. We love bringing people on journeys with us, so thank you very much for letting me share these with you. We are Think Film Impact Production. We are on all the social media platforms at Think Film Impact. So you can find us there. We're around at Cannes. My name's Amy, and my email address is on our website, tfip.org. So please do get in touch. I can see questions, and we're going to see if we can make Bio work.
It's not going to.
Probably not.
Thank you very much. We're going to come back to Q&As in a bit, but we're going to move to the next panel discussion. And thank you so much, Amy. Thank you. I've learned so much, and I love what you guys are doing. And I think we all need to get involved.
Absolutely.
We need our own tribe.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.